and welcome back to 209 Prep Sports Media, back with Chris Herrera and Scott Bryant on location in Huntington Beach. Somebody's got living the rough life.
Hey, I just got to check out and see what they're doing down here for high school sports.
Well, we don't have the budget for you to be down there just gallivanting around, so keep it short and sweet.
Will do.
So a lot of stuff going on this week. A lot of schools, a lot of local schools, especially in Stanislaus County, were able to get the green light with their season. So I know that nearly every high school is starting to get their prep together with getting their test kits and all the things that they need for football and water polo. Also basketball and volleyball in those schools that will be participating in wrestling. So we're full green lighted on nearly every sport that's out there and available. I don't wish I was an AD at this point by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, for where we've been and what we've been through, it's pretty exciting times for the kids, the coaches, and everybody around. I think if there's probably, you know, a black cloud hanging all over all of this, it's the lack of the ability for parents to attend, and that's just going to be something we have to deal with this spring. So that's kind of a status report of where we're at. How do you feel about all those things?
Yeah, you know, it's been pretty neat the last week and a half or so. I've gotten the chance to go out and talk to some of the local coaches, and we'll have a couple of them on the show today. But that's the feeling. There's a lot of excitement. I think the biggest feeling that they have in this whole thing is they're actually going to let their seniors play. You know, the seniors are actually going to get to step foot on the field or on the court, or you know, whatever their chosen sport is, and they're really excited about it. I mean, there's some disappointment in the fact that, you know, it's a shortened season, there's no postseason, any of the stuff like that. But you know, the level of excitement's there. And then, like you said, not allowing, you know, regular fan base to attend games, that's going to be tough. And you'll hear in a couple of the interviews that, you know, some of the matchups that we're going to see in the next few weeks, I just think the stadiums would just be packed to see these games played. You know, first thing coming to mind is, you know, like St. Mary's and De La Salle. And then, you know, right off the bat, Escalon's playing Oakdale, a game that has been in the works for over 40 years. And so I think there's going to be a lot of excitement there. But then there's always kind of, you know, another black cloud hanging over at any given moment, depending on a test result. A game could be pulled in the last second. So there's some of that as well. Yeah,
we had a Zoom meeting last night with Coach Franks at St. Mary's, and he talked about, he kind of reiterated the story we talked about. I didn't really understand it when he talked about it on our broadcast, or our podcast, but he actually explained it, that he has one of his best friends is a coach at Cal, you know, and they're going to play the Washington Huskies in the stadium. They're leaving the hotel on their way to the stadium when they get a positive test from Washington and have to turn the thing around and shut it down. And that's at a collegiate Pac-12 level with, you know, all the bells and whistles and everything at their discretion. So, you know, it's going to be something all of us are going to have to deal with. You know, we tested this week. We scrimmage in Amador this week. And I know a lot of schools have begun their testing phase. So we're going to see it. I mean, and I talked to a couple of ADs this week, and they were like, you know, and I said, you know, we're going to have, somebody's going to get test positive, and it's going to, you know, take a game away, or two. But, you know, I mean, at least we have the opportunity, you know, so whether we agree or disagree with what the structure is, it is what it is. There's not anything we're going to be able to do about it at this point. So we got to work within the confines of it. And like we've preached since day one, you know, just be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely uncharted territory. And, you know, as you know, me not being a coach or a parent of, you know, a football player, I'm just a fan, and I'm excited about the fact that they get to play. And I'm hoping that everything goes successfully. I hope that everybody gets the full slate of games that they're allowed. And, you know, hopefully this carries over into a full fall season where we're going to get to see some really good football.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it'll be, you know, we had practice yesterday, and we got, you know, because, you know, with our football seasons in California, we just don't see bad weather. So yesterday we had hailstorms and rainstorms on half. I saw that. It was Jesuit, I believe, up in Sacramento had a hailstorm, and their whole football field was full of. It was white. It was basically like, a half an inch, quarter of an inch of just hail on the ground. So, we're dealing with all those types of things. But I know like I said, I know you're on location. You're out and about. Is there anything you wanted to add before I let you go and we play your interviews?
Yeah, you're gonna hear two very good interviews. You'll hear the excitement in the coaches' voices, and I think one of the things that I took from talking to both of these coaches was, their ability to kind of make decisions on the fly and really, do things in uncharted territory where they're able to adapt to their situations. You'll hear Coach Beam talk about the way he changes his practice schedule to really accommodate his athletes, and it's really interesting what they've done there. And I'm sure that what they've done is kind of an extreme measure, but at the same time, it's really worked out for the athletes. But I think across the board, any of the coaches in our area, they're doing things to make things better for the kids. I think that's the overwhelming sentiment, is that these coaches and every single one of them that I've spoken to, they are 100% all in for the kids, and the focal point that of being the seniors, and the fact that they've kind of been shortchanged a little bit on their playing time and all of that. So they're really focusing on them. So I think you're going to hear two very well-spoken coaches in these two interviews.
How did you, and again, I'm going to let you get out of here, but what were some of the key points that you realized that you got from Coach Lever up at Somerville?
Yeah, he's done a really great job of keeping kids focused on the program. You'll hear us talk a little bit about it, but his numbers are extremely good in terms of participation. Even if we didn't have COVID, the numbers are outstanding, because he's at a school that is fairly remote. They're kind of on an island, and it's not an area of California where he's at least not his district, where there's a population really kind of increasing like a lot of other schools on the valley floor. And like I alluded to before, Coach Beam, he's done a lot of things that have made scheduling for his athletes to do other sports and other activities. They've made some extreme measures to make that happen. So, like I said, it doesn't matter who you talk to. I think to a T, every coach in our area is doing things differently and doing things as best as they can for these kids, and it's really fun to see.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I know you're gone for the weekend and you're in vacation mode, so I'm going to let you just do what you do and enjoy yourself in Huntington Beach, and we'll carry on with the program and talk to you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see some of the outcomes of some of the events this weekend.
All right, we'll talk to you. We'll talk next week.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks. Bye. So with that being said, Scott was able to travel up to Somerville and talk to Coach Sean Lever. So we're going to go ahead and play that interview now, and then we'll get to the Andrew Beam interview right after. So.
Hi, I'm here speaking to Sean Leverose, head coach of the Somerville Bears. Coach, just want to thank you for taking the time and allowing me to ask you a couple questions.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, so, I think the first question, and we ask this of a lot of coaches, is, with the difficulties that we've had, the season being moved to the spring, it being abbreviated, maybe share with us just some of the things that you've experienced, as a coach and as a, kind of a coordinator of a program that you've had to do getting up to this point.
Yeah, obviously the biggest difficulty that we've faced is that everybody's blazing right now, and no one has kind of a go-to for a pandemic like we're going through. And getting a football season off the ground and started, we say sometimes it's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier around when things change.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so that's been the struggles is we've sped up and slowed down and sped up and slowed down, and then we're mercy of a daily, hourly changing system.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, you kind of echo the sentiments of most of the other area coaches. With that said, and the rules that they've put on you, getting a 5-game schedule, what's your status on that? And maybe, give us kind of a quick rundown of who's on that schedule, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our league, when the announced that it was going to be up to the leagues to decide how the season went, we felt, okay, well, we'll have our league. And then one of the hurdles became, well, what happens if a league member decides not to take part of the season? So then there was a couple different league meetings to adjust schedules and create buys and kind of created a couple different scenarios for us to proceed forward. And then just last week, the bomb got dropped on us that we weren't allowed to play league opponents that were 2 counties away. So we went from a 5-game schedule to a 4-game with a league member deciding not to opt into to all of a sudden only a 2-game schedule because we had 2 league opponents that were 2 counties away. So then it became a mad scramble trying to fill in games and the parameters of having that county touch your county.
That's an interesting rule that they've put in there because, from a spectator standpoint, or me just being a high school football fan, it really doesn't make a lot of sense because 2 counties away in some cases can actually be closer than going to the other side of a county that you're in, and so. Sometimes I think the rules get in the way of progress, and unfortunately, that kind of, as a coach, that really kind of puts you in a difficult situation.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. As a crow flies, we were closer to some opponents than we are now, so I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, daily, hourly changing rule system that we're facing.
Yeah, it's it's been really tough on coaches for sure, and I think if people listen to some of the other coaches that we've talked to, they one of the things we've noticed is that you guys have done a really good job of keeping kids on task. Like you said, the start, the stop, the start, the stop. That's difficult to keep a teenage student on task when you keep doing that. So, hats off to you guys as coaches for keeping the program together and putting yourself in a position where you can actually get some games.
We appreciate that up here, and many times the why that we're doing this is we look up and down our rosters, and it's the opportunity to have them play in a meaningful contest is really the why behind a lot of the coaches' doings right now.
Yeah, because we know you're not doing it for the pay. That's for sure.
That is correct.
It's a labor of love, and we appreciate you and your staff and what you guys do for our high school athletes. With that said, maybe let's actually talk some football. So you've got some, we'll break it into 2 categories. You've got returning players that in a normal situation that are going to contribute, and then we'll follow that up with some new faces. But maybe give us a breakdown on some of your key returning players that are difference makers.
Yeah, so the first kind of the key returners are the seniors, and as I look up and down the roster, we have anywhere from about 8 to 10, just depending on whether or not we get through our testing protocol. And of that, we're excited to be returning a lot of linemen in those senior numbers. And then obviously we're returning a couple key components in our quarterback and running back. And those 2 names are Josh Caldera and Jaden Brokini. And then to round out, we're fortunate. We were about 31 kids right now, but we brought up all the sophomores that we felt that could safely contribute to a varsity outcome came up. So I think we only have 1 or 2 that stayed down on the JV team. So we have around 10 sophomores that came up to help make our roster reach 30.
So bringing up the 10 sophomores and like you said, having 30, you guys are still in a position to field a JV team. Is that correct?
That is correct. So our JV team yesterday had 21 players on their roster. So all told, we have around 52 kids in the program right now.
Those are, for people that aren't familiar with Summerville, those are phenomenal numbers in a normal year.
In a normal year, we're 50 is where we hover.
Yeah.
So to have 50 coming out in this uncharted territory and having to compete with spring sports and as you know, well, maybe not. I think it's league dependent.
Yeah.
We have a lot of kids that play soccer as well. So we lost some numbers to soccer. So for us to be in the 50s and be competing with some sports that we usually don't have to compete with.
Yeah, that's true. That's you bring up a really valid point, because at a school your size, and there's many of them in the Central Valley, where you as a coach, you're sharing athletes with the other sports, and it's usually not a problem because you just go from one sport to another sport to another sport. But now that they're log jamming everything into just a couple of months, it definitely increases the difficulty level in making sure that you're able to get the kids back, that you need back to be successful, and still allowing them to do the things that they want to do as high school athletes.
Agreed. And you should see our football field in the afternoons. We have started practice at 1 for the JV kids that can't leave. Our school's been released at 12:30 daily right now. So you'll have a JV team out there from 1 to 3. Then you'll have a varsity football team out there from 3 to 5. And then you'll have a boys or girls soccer team come onto the field about 3:30 to around 3:30. And then another one come out there around 5:30. So it looks like a conveyor belt of teams coming and going and splitting the field and sharing it and making it all happen.
Wow, that's coordination at its finest right there.
It's an adapt and overcome. Here's the scenario, and we ran with it, and a bunch of the coaches got together, and everybody understands the situation that we're all in. Add cheer to that. Cheer's been on the sidelines as well. So the energy out there is great because it's finally a step to getting back to normal. Gotcha.
To wrap things up a little bit, as you're, again, these are not normal times, and the hope is that by the fall we get back to some normal times. Do you see this as maybe for your returning players that are going to come back next year? Do you see this as an opportunity to kind of have a, almost like a college atmosphere spring football, where you're able to have contact and you're able to do some football drills that you wouldn't normally be able to do, and then have them kind of carry that over into the fall?
Absolutely. As coaches, it's one of the things that we've talked about, that the whys behind this crazy season that we're going through is wise to get the seniors a chance to showcase their talents and give them one final opportunity. But then on the other end, it's been a blessing we've never had spring ball with pads on. So it's we're looking at it as a spring ball opportunity for the underclassmen.
Yeah, for sure. That's fantastic. So, hey, the last thing I want to ask you about, I had mentioned this just a few seconds ago, as outsiders looking in, I think we have a lot of assumptions, in terms of what coaches do and what's asked of them, and maybe more so this year than any other time in recent history have we done that with the coaches. With that said, maybe if you've got a couple of things that you want to, share the commitments that you've gotten from your coaching staff and kind of praise them a little bit, by all means.
Yeah. Anyone that's coached before or lived with a coach, we include our wives. They understand the many hats that the coaches wear. And this year obviously has been a challenge, but a lot of my staff has a very supportive, loving spouse behind them that recognizes that this is important to the well-being of our student body. And so the many hats that we wear in addition to coaching, it's really just trying to create a better community through our next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, as supporters of high school sports and high school football and volleyball and all those other things, we appreciate what you guys do, and we know the sacrifices you make. And so, on behalf of the people that listen to our podcast, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to give us a little bit of insight.
Scott, thank you for your time. It was my pleasure, and if I can ever do anything in the future to help you guys out, let me know.
Absolutely.
The experiences that I've gone through as a coach, him and theirs are a little bit different, like Scott brought up to him and he reiterated the two counties, the 2-county rule, and really, I think they're within like 25 miles of that second county. So it's not really that, it should be more, it's hard. And so that, to have those restrictions and those confinements puts us in a very difficult position to be able to schedule games and make sure that the kids get the experience that we'd like them to have. And for Summerville to have those types of numbers, in this type of a season, it's just, to me, it's crazy. We've lost about 50% of our players to just about anything, and like Coach said, they start, they stop, they speed up, they slow down, and we experienced that, all season as well, and all of us did. All the programs, dealt with bad air quality. They dealt with heat index issues, and we had to deal with COVID issues. All of us were shut down for, lengths of time, and it's hard to keep interest of the player, when they're constantly wondering if they're going to have a season or what that season is going to look like. So, I can appreciate, Coach's sentiments, and I can appreciate his effort, and we, we're very grateful that, he took the time to spend with us and share his insights and his team. We wish him all the luck in the world this year, and hopefully, everybody tests negative throughout the season and they get their entire season in. So once again, thanks to Coach Sean Leveroos from Somerville, and good luck to you guys in the season. So as Scott proceeded through the week, actually he went earlier in the week and met with Coach Andrew Beam at Escalon, and so that was an interview that we'll play here in a minute. But it's like we mentioned in the prelude to these interviews is that Escalon will open with Oakdale, and that's a rivalry that would seem to on paper be an annual game, that because they're 20 miles from each other ish, and with the demographic and the makeup in the school much the same, and so for whatever reason they just haven't played. So this would be in any other year, that Friday night game would be packed. The stadium would be packed from both schools. There'd be multiple reporters and kids from other schools and everybody trying to get a ticket. So I'm interested to see. I haven't heard the interview with Coach Beam. He and I've communicated quite a bit on different things, and we were actually supposed to open our season this year against them at Linden. And so let's go ahead and play that interview with Coach Beam now.
I'm here with Coach Andrew Beam of the Escalon Cougars. Coach, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you doing this. A lot of the questions that have been coming up this year are pretty obvious. I guess the first thing that really I'll ask you is, how have you been able to cope with your players, normally playing in the fall, but having a start time and then not being able to go, and then starting and not being able to go, and kind of some of the things that you've had to deal with that?
Yeah, first off, thanks for coming out. I'm happy to be talking football, that's for sure. Didn't think we were going to get this opportunity or this chance to even suit up and play games and get us a 5-game schedule, but here we are. The challenges of playing spring football, it's been a year of off and on workouts. I think that we're 2.5 weeks into this thing, and these kids are more rusty and more out of shape than any of my previous 10, 11 years. And it's obvious why. I mean, we all know why, with all the restrictions and all the health care that we've had to take. But, the kids are just excited. I mean, our fullback summed it up perfect the other day, Luke Anderson. He said, this is the happiest I've been in a year. He finally gets to play a sport. And, we have so many kids at both levels, the JV and the varsity, that play multiple sports, whether it be track, whether it's tennis or baseball. And when we proposed the idea of 5:30 a.m. practices a couple times a week, to make it a little bit easier on their bodies in the afternoon, these guys didn't even bat an eye. And so we're going a couple days a week, 5:30 in the morning until 7:30, which is nice because I have all these guys in my pre-period football class. So, they're already on campus early, and so that helps. But, we have guys that go to baseball in the afternoon for a couple hours, then go to a AAU basketball game at night. And, these guys just want the opportunity to play. They just want to play the sports that they love while, they still have the opportunity. And, at Escalon, we share a lot of athletes with a lot of the other coaches, and, we're just got to find a way to make it work.
Yeah, that's pretty commonplace at the smaller schools. And I don't think that the schools, the larger schools that have individual athletes for each sport understand what it's like to share athletes, and then you condense it down into just a couple of months. That's an interesting perspective of, being creative with your schedule in order to make it work. So that's great. It's always exciting to actually talk about football. So maybe let's just jump right into that a little bit. You've with a season like this, and again, this is uncommon territory, but a season like this is probably going to be all about the seniors, I imagine. And so maybe talk about some of your key upperclassmen that you have coming back this season.
Yeah, so we're losing 18 starters off that state championship team from last year, and there's a lot of new names and a lot of new bodies in these spots. We're going to be very young in terms of having 4 sophomores on the varsity, 3 of them going both ways, and that's going to be asking a lot of those guys. But at the same time, we have some key components returning. Our quarterback, Ty Harris, he's been a 2-year starter, had an outstanding season last year, threw for more yards and more TDs than any Escalon quarterback has. He's a tremendous competitor, tremendous leader, a guy that, was willing to play any position just to make his team better, and I love that about him. He's like having another coach on the field. Returning your quarterback with so many other new starters is huge. And then the other part that we forget is Luke Anderson, one of the strongest athletes that we've ever had at Escalon. He's a 4-year, 1,000-pound club member. He's been on varsity since he was a sophomore, has been one of the most impactful players in the TBL the last 2 years. And I think that if we would have had a TBL season this year, he would have been one of the top players in that league. But he's a bull. I mean, he is strong as an ox. He's super quick, just that old school tough mentality that you love to have. And he's going to play middle linebacker and fullback. And, you picture an Escalon fullback, middle linebacker, and he fits that mold to perfection. And his brother, Logan Anderson, who's a sophomore, will be in the backfield with him as well. So I think that's kind of cool. First time they've ever gotten to play football together. So that'll be fun, for his dad and his family to watch. And then on the offensive line, I think we return one of the best players, on the line on either side in our league, in Demetrius Texera. He's an outstanding, baseball player, but he's also an outstanding football player. And I think last year he was a guy that, kind of got overshadowed by the 3-year seniors on the offense and defensive line. But, I think he's as good as they come. And so we have some great leadership individuals in some key spots to help bring up those young guys. But it's going to be fun. I mean, our mantra this year is that, we don't rebuild, we reload. Awesome. It's the same jersey, the same helmet, the same E on the side of the head, just new bodies in those things. And, we've still got the same goal in mind. Let's go out and win football games and compete.
Yeah, that's a great mantra. Again, 5-game season, everybody's scrambling to prepare for that first game. Things are a little bit different for you this year. You're opening up with Oakdale. Probably a game that as a coach, you've probably wanted to play that game many times in the past. I'm sure Trent Merzon's probably wanted to play this game before, Oakdale, Escalon, two of the, very storied programs in the Central Valley. Maybe give us a quick rundown of, what it's going to take to beat an Oakdale team.
Shoot, myself and a bunch of the Escalon coaches who are, almost all Escalon alumni. When we talked about playing Oakdale, it was exciting. Two of the more storied public schools in this area, haven't played each other, I think, in almost 40 or 50 years. Wow. And you talk about the success of that Oakdale program and, what Oakdale means around the state. And, we have tremendous respect for Coach Merzon and his players and his staff. And, to get the opportunity to go and play them and, there's not a lot on the line. I mean, there's no playoff implications. Doesn't hurt us. If we lose, it's just a game that is going to be fun for our two communities, being so close together, and one heck of a challenge. I'll be honest. I don't know in the last 3 years, as a head coach that we've had a game where, this is probably the highest quality coaching staff, highest quality team with the tradition that they have that we've played. And it's going to be a great test for our kids. And, it's one that they look forward to. The Oakdale and Escalon kids, they hang out,
Sure.
They date between the two high schools. They, party between the two high schools. They know each other. They're friends. And so it's just going to be a great atmosphere, even with the restricted attendance. But, man, I couldn't imagine what this game would be like if there wasn't a restriction on the attendance, because it's going to be awfully fun and one heck of a challenge for our kids.
Yeah, I imagine if we still had Stagg Stadium at Pacific, you move this game to that stadium, probably get pretty full. So you play Oakdale the first week. Now you've got 4 more games on your schedule. I imagine it's not necessarily going to get easy for you in any 4 of those games.
No, we follow up Oakdale with a really talented Amador team, who pushed Ripon in that Division 5 playoff game last year. I mean, they return a ton of athletes. That's going to be a great test for us as well. Kimball's going to give us a different look and spread us out, 4 or 5 wide. Then we have Ripon. It's a rivalry game. Yeah. It's exciting. We get to play football, and at least we get to play one of our rivals. And that's what makes it fun. I mean, if you could ask our kids, pick one team to play in the San Joaquin or Sac Joaquin County, it's going to be Ripon. So, at least our boys get that, even with the shortened season. And then we followed up with Sierra, who's a reigning section champ, NorCal runner-up. So there's nothing easy about it. It's going to really challenge our depth, and our healthiness throughout the year. But again, there's nothing really riding on the line, and so it kind of creates a unique opportunity for our players.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on from the players, one of the questions that I've been asking a lot of the local coaches, especially the head coaches, maybe give us some insight. With the commitments that you make over a regular season. And the fact that, I don't think there's any high school coaches that do this for the money, because I don't think there's much in it. Maybe give me some insight on your staff. You talked about, some of your staff. I'm familiar with Derek Scott, who's been around for a long time, was a great football player, wrestler here as well. But maybe just kind of, if you will, this is a chance to highlight them a little bit and the commitments that they've made to get these kids to where they're at now.
One of those things that I think has made Escalon unique is the fact that, even when we were playing in the 2000s, that coaching staff that Coach Leveroos put together, I mean, most of those guys were Escalon alumni who wore the purple and gold, wore the same jersey and helmet like I mentioned earlier. And now, you fast forward to where we are, Coach Brandon Hoover, he's our defense coordinator, graduate of Escalon. Our offensive line coach, Joe Cowan, graduate of Escalon. Daniel Gonzalez, D-line coach, graduate of Escalon. Coach Derek Scott, the head varsity wrestling coach, highly successful, an Escalon alumni. And then our wide receiver DB coach, Alec Von Alvenslaven, Escalon alumni. And I think that really helps, as a coach to player, the understanding of why we work so hard, why we do the things that we do, because all those guys bought in to the previous coaching staff. And we understand what it means to play at Escalon and be a part of this community and what football truly means. And I think that the players pick up on that. Across the board, it's Escalon alumni, and we're back here doing it because we love it and we love the opportunity that we were given. And now we're just paying it back.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, as a high school football fan, it's always interesting to come driving through Escalon and to see those state championship boards up when you enter town. You don't see a welcome to Escalon. The first thing you see is Escalon State High School Football Champions, and that's exciting. So, Coach, again, thank you for taking the time. Good luck to you and the Cougars this season, and I'm sure we're going to see some great results, as we always do, from an Escalon high school football team.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So these interviews are just so important to understand why people do what they do. I mean, and we'll start kind of work backwards there, but talking about the staff, and I think most of the high school programs in the area are the same way. There's just not a lot of money in there for the coaching, and so really it's a labor of love, and there has to be some type of an affinity for the program. We haven't been as lucky where we're at, to get a lot of alumni come back and coach, but we do get a lot of parents that coach at the youth level and then work their way to the high school level, and it's kind of cyclical that way. And I'm sure a lot of the coaches at Escalon will also coach their youth levels, and that's where it just ends up getting, the structure and the talent and the coaching is just. You just get better because you get an opportunity to become seasoned and all those types of things. So I think it's important that we pay some respects to these assistant coaches and head coaches and ADs and teachers and everybody of the like that have been there to make this happen. It's exciting to hear about the Oakdale Escalon game. I know that Oakdale's going to play Ripon as well, but they didn't shy away from a tough schedule this year. And I don't think. This is a weird season where all of us are kind of, just playing the games we're able to get. Linden has also picked up a pretty big schedule, and, Kimball, schools that, in the past have not, they're a product of their league. And so they don't get the opportunity to play, some of the more talented teams in the area. Not that there's anything good or bad with that. It's just, it's part of how things are. But I think it's neat to see, these small town schools like, Somerville and Escalon and Ripon and Oakdale and the success that they've had, is not luck. We go up tomorrow night to scrimmage Amador, and like he just mentioned, Amador gave Ripon all they could handle last year, and so and Ripon wins the state championship, at their level. So it's just, there's just a ton of talent in the area, and it's, again, hopefully, everything falls into place the way it should. And hopefully, that we're not dealing with a lot of positive tests and things like that to put a damper on the season. But, football starting, we've wrapped up. I know a lot of swim schedules are done. I know golf's about to wrap up. So, and cross country. So those sports that were able to start initially, their seasons are about over. And so the football season is starting. I know soccer and some of those are starting. Then the spring sports are starting a little bit later in April. But I know that some of the schools have already started with their baseball schedule. So it's pretty neat to see that this is happening all at once. And but it's also difficult, and, to go back and reiterate, how impressive it is that 51 kids are playing at Somerville, and they get about 50 every year. When I would venture a guess that, I've heard a lot of schools have had an issue with getting kids to play, especially seniors, because they've kind of already checked out and they're already working their way to whatever they're going to be doing after high school. So I just don't think they're as passionate about the sports as they were when they were younger. So, and especially having missed out on this last year. But, like Coach Beam said, and Luke Anderson said it best, he's the happiest he's been in a year, and that's probably that sentiment's probably resonated over the entire state of California with these athletes, because the opportunities, I believe all but 2 of the counties are now able to go. Everybody's sub 14 per 100,000, so everybody's able to play if they can put a schedule together. So. And there's a lot of work putting the schedule together. I'll promise you that, I know firsthand how much work it takes, and it's being creative, and it's being patient, and it's being thoughtful and mindful of, travel and you're trying not to get, your kids into a situation where, they're in over their head, or that, they're just out talented or outclassed, and typically that comes with the size of a school, just because you have the depth. And when you're playing a 4-game schedule against them, and Escalon's playing a meaty schedule, you get a key injury or two, and it puts a damper on the rest of the season. So again, it's very exciting where we're at. It's super important that we pay respect to those that have put in the work, all of the people behind the scenes and that are making it happen. They're hustling to get testing in place. Everybody, if your county isn't less than 7 per 100,000 positive cases on a rolling 14 days, then you have to test every single week within 48 hours of your game. So that's a lot of work. I mean, you're talking, some of these programs have 60, 70, 80 kids, and to get 80 kids tested and all of them to test negative is, it's an accomplishment in and of itself. So we're there. We're opening this weekend. There are some games this weekend that we'll cover next week. I'm sure that we'll see a lot of that on Twitter and on Max Preps and those places. A lot of schools are streaming through NFHS. And so if your kid's playing or somebody is playing at a particular high school, you can actually do a search through the high school and find the link for the game if it were to be televised. So that's a national platform. And so I've seen a couple of people complain about the quality of the video. A lot of times the quality of the video comes from the people actually taking the video and not the website itself. So, and there is a cost. I believe it's about $10 a month. But in lieu of not getting to see a game at all, I think that we just have to do what we have to do for this season and hope things get a little bit better as we move on. So it's an exciting time for all of us. We'll start to cover the other sports as they get going. It's rather difficult to cover cross country and swim and those types of things on an individual basis, because there's so many different events and there's so many different schools going on, and they're not really being highlighted or published anywhere. So it's hard for us to locate that. So we're always interested in hearing from ADs or schools or the like. You can reach us on Twitter at 209 Prep. You can reach us on Facebook at 209 Prep Sports, or you can email us at prepsports209@yahoo.com. So that's the best place to reach us. If you're out in the listening land, go ahead and share this podcast with other people so we can spread the word, because we're really looking forward to getting some results and talking about some of the highlights of the week and some of and that's I know like St. Mary's opened up with baseball this last weekend in a scrimmage against Franklin Elk Grove, and I believe some baseball games are already starting to happen, so, and I'm sure softball as well. So we're there. I mean, it's proving ground time now, so our games are about to start this Friday and Saturday, and then next week almost everybody who's playing football will be playing in the Valley. So we have a lot of things to cover, and we've got a short time to get there. So we appreciate everybody listening and hope everybody has a great weekend. Good luck to those participating this week. Everybody stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.